कुंज बिहारी
जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी
जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी
जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी
गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी
गोपी जन
गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी
गोपी जन गिरिवरधारी
जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी
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 गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी
गोपी जन गिरिवरधारी
गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी
गोपी जन गिरिवरधारी
जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी
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 यशोदानन्दन व्रज जन रञ्जन
यशोदानन्दन
यशोदानन्दन व्रज जन रञ्जन
यशोदानन्दन भजन
यमुना तीर वनचारी
नदीरा वनचारी
वीर वनचारी
नदीरा वनचारी
जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी
Hare Ram, Hare Ram.
Vandeham Juta Padakamalam Sri Gurum Vaishnava Vangsha Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanitang Tang Sajivam Sadaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Sri Vishakha Nitan Bhaja Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Bhaja Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Bhajate Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda
Okay. So reading from the Samhita. Did that stay on? Okay. Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the Supreme Godhead. He has an eternal, blissful, spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin, and he is the prime cause of all causes. The spiritual place of transcendental pastimes of Krishna is portrayed in the second verse. The super-excellent station of Krishna, which is known as Gokula, has thousands of petals and a corolla like that of a lotus sprouted from a part of his infinitary aspect. The whirl of the leaves being the actual abode of Krishna. The whirl of that transcendental lotus is the realm wherein dwells Krishna. It is a hexagonal figure, the abode of the indwelling predominated and predominating aspect of the Absolute. Like a diamond, the central supporting figure of self-luminous Krishna stands as the transcendental source of all potencies. The holy name, consisting of 18 transcendental letters, is manifested in a hexagonal figure with sixfold divisions. The whirl of that eternal realm of Gokula is the hexagonal abode of Krishna. Its petals are the abodes of gopis, who are part and parcel of Krishna, to whom they are most lovingly devoted and are similar in essence. The petals shine beautifully like so many walls. The extended leaves of that lotus are the garden-like dham, spiritual abode of Sri Radhika, the most beloved of Krishna. The surrounding external plane of Gokula is described in this verse. There is a mysterious quadrangular place named Svetadweep surrounding the outskirts of Gokula. Svetadweep is divided into 4 parts on all sides. The abode of Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha are separately located in each of these 4 parts. These 4 divided abodes are enveloped by the 4-fold human requirements, such as piety, wealth, passion, and liberation, and also by the 4 Vedas, viz. Rig, Sama, Yajur, and Atharva, which deals with the mantra, and which are the basis of achievements of the 4-fold mundane requirements. 10 tridents are fixed in the 10 directions, including the zenith and nadir. The 8 directions are decorated with 8 jewels of Mahapadma, Padma, Sankha, Makara, Kachapa, Mukunda, Kunda, and Nila. There are 10 protectors, Dikpalas, of the 10 directions in the form of mantra. The associates of the hues of blue, yellow, red, and white, and the extraordinary potencies bearing the names Bimala, etc., shine on all sides. The Lord of Gokula is the transcendental Supreme Godhead, the own self of eternal ecstasies. He is the superior of all superiors, and is busily engaged in the enjoyments of the transcendental realm, and has no association with with his mundane potency. Krishna never consorts with his illusory energy. Still, her connection is not entirely cut off from the absolute truth. When he intends to create the material world, the amorous pastime in which he engages by consorting with his own spiritual chit potency, Rama, by casting his glance at the diluting energy in the shape of sending his time energy, is an auxiliary activity. The secondary process of association with Maya is described. Rama Devi, the spiritual chit potency, beloved consort of the Supreme Lord, is the regulatrix of all entities. The divine plenary portion of Krishna creates the mundane world. At creation, there appears a divine halo of the nature of his own subjective portion, Swamsa. This halo is divine Shambhu, the masculine symbol of manifested emblem of the Supreme Lord. This halo is the dim twilight reflection of the supreme eternal effulgence. This masculine symbol is the subjective portion of divinity, who functions as progenitor of the mundane world, subject to the supreme regulatrix, Niyati. The conceiving potency in regard to mundane creation makes her appearance out of the supreme regulatrix. She is Maya, the limited, non-absolute apara potency, the symbol of mundane feminine productivity. The intercourse of these two brings forth the faculty of perverted cognition, the reflection of the seed of the procreative desire of the Supreme Lord. All offspring of the consort of the great Lord, Maheshvara, of this mundane world, are of the nature of the embodiment of the mundane masculine and feminine generative organs. You want to read the next 10? Dr. Jacob?
The next 10. The person embodying the material cause of the in the form of the male generating organ, which joins his female consort, the limited energy, Maya, as the efficient causal principle. The Lord of the world, Mahavishnu, is manifest in him by his subjective portion in the form of his glance. The Lord of the mundane world, Mahavishnu, possesses thousands of heads, eyes, hands. He is the source of thousands of avatars and his thousands of subjective portions. He is the creator of thousands of individual souls. The same Mahavishnu is spoken of by the name of Narayan in this mundane world. From that eternal person has sprung the vast expanse of water of the spiritual causal ocean. The subjective portion of Sankarshan, who abides in Paravyoma, the above Supreme Purusha with thousands of subjective portions, reposes in the state of divine sleep, Yoga Nidra, in the waters of the spiritual causal ocean. The spiritual seeds of Sankarshan existing in the pores of skin of Mahavishnu are born as so many golden sperms. These sperms are covered with 5 great elements. The same Mahavishnu entered into each universe as his own separate subjective portions. The divine portions that entered into each universe are possessed of his majestic extension, i.e., they are the eternal universal soul Mahavishnu, possessing thousands of heads. The same Mahavishnu created Vishnu from his left limb, Brahma, the first progenitor of beings. From his right limb and from the space between his 2 eyebrows, Shambhu, the divine masculine manifested halo. The function of Shambhu in relation to jivas is that this universe enshrining the mundane egoistic principle has originated from Shambhu. Thereupon the same great personal Godhead, assuming the threefold forms of Vishnu, Prajapati, and Shambhu, entering into the mundane universe, plays the pastimes of preservation, creation, and destruction of this world. This pastime is contained in the mundane world. Hence, it being perverted, the Supreme Lord, identical with Mahavishnu, prefers to consort with the goddess Yoganidra, the constituent of his own spiritual chit potency, full of the ecstatic trance of eternal bliss, appertaining to his own divine personality. When Vishnu, lying in the ocean of milk, wills to create this universe, a golden lotus springs from his navel pit. The golden lotus with his stem is the abode of Brahma, representing Brahmaloka or Satyaloka. Before their conglomeration, the primary elements in their nascent state remained originally separate entities. Non-application of the conglomerating process is the cause of their separate existence. Divine Mahavishnu, primal Godhead, through association with his own spiritual chit potency, moved Maya, and by the application of the conglomerating principle, created those different entities in their state of cooperation. And after that, he himself consorted with Yoga Nidra by way of his eternal dalliance with his spiritual chit potency.
Okay, that's it. Next person.
By conglomerating all those separate entities, he manifested the innumerable mundane universes and himself entered into the inmost recess of every extended conglomerate. Virad Vigraha. At that time, those jivas who had lain dormant during the cataclysm were awakened. The same jiva is eternal and is for eternity and without a beginning joined to the Supreme Lord by the tie of an internal kinship. He is transcendental spiritual potency. The divine lotus, which springs from the navel pit of Vishnu, is in every way related by the spiritual tie with all souls and is the origin of four-faced Brahma, versed in the four Vedas. On coming out of the lotus, Brahma, being guided by the divine potency, turned his mind to the act of creation under the impulse of previous impressions, but he could see nothing but darkness in every direction. Then the goddess of learning, Saraswati, the divine consort of the Supreme Lord, said thus to Brahma, who saw nothing but gloom in all directions, "O Brahma, this mantra vis-a-vis Klim Krishnaya Govindaya Gopi Jana Vallabhaya Swaha will assuredly fulfill your heart's desire. O Brahma, do thou practice spiritual association by means of this mantra, then all your desires will be fulfilled." Brahma, being desirous of satisfying Govinda, practiced the cultural acts for Krishna in Goloka, Lord of Swetadvipa, for a long time. His meditation ran thus: there exists a divine lotus of 1,000 petals, augmented by millions of filaments, in the transcendental land of Goloka. On its whirl there exists a great divine throne on which is seated Sri Krishna, the form of eternal effulgence of transcendental bliss, playing on his divine flute, resonant with the divine sound, with his lotus mouth. He is worshipped by his amorous milkmaids with their respective subjective portions and extensions, and also by his external energy, who stays outside, embodying all mundane qualities. Then Gayatri, mother of the Vedas, being made manifest, i.e. imparted, by the divine sound of the flute of Sri Krishna, entered into the lotus mouth of Brahma, born from himself through his 8 ear holes. The lotus-born Brahma, having received the Gayatri, sprung from the flute song of Sri Krishna, attained the status of the twice-born, having been initiated by the supreme primal preceptor, Godhead himself. Enlightened by the recollection of that Gayatri, embodying the 3 Vedas, Brahma became acquainted with the expanse of the ocean of truth. Then he worshipped Sri Krishna, the essence of all Vedas, with this hymn. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor who is tending the cows, yielding all desire, in abodes built with spiritual gems, surrounded by millions of purpose trees, always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds of thousands of Lakshmis or Gopis.
Okay, we'll do next hymn.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is adept in playing on his flute, with blooming eyes like lotus petals, with head decked with peacock's feather, with a figure of beauty tinged with the hue of blue clouds, and his unique loveliness charming millions of cupids. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, round whose neck is swinging a garland of flowers, beautified with the moon locket, whose 2 hands are adorned with the flute and jewel ornaments, who always revels in pastimes of love, whose graceful threefold bending form of Shyam Sundar is eternally manifest. I worship Govinda, the primal Lord, whose transcendental form is full of bliss, truth, substantiality, and is thus full of the most dazzling splendor. Each of the limbs of that transcendental figure possesses in himself the full-fledged functions of all the organs and eternally sees, maintains, and manifests the infinite universes, both spiritual and mundane. I worship Govinda, the primal Lord, who is inaccessible to the Vedas but obtainable by a pure, unalloyed devotion of the soul, who is without a second, who is not subject to decay, is without a beginning, whose form is endless, who is the beginning and the eternal Purusha. Yet he is a person possessing the beauty of blooming youth. I worship Govinda, the primal Lord, only the tip of the toe of whose lotus feet is approached by the yogis who aspire after the transcendental and betake themselves to pranayam by drilling the respiration, or by the jnanis who try to find out the non-differentiated Brahman by the process of elimination of the mundane, extending over thousands of millions of years. He is an undifferentiated entity, as there is no distinction between potency and the possessor thereof. In his work of creation of millions of worlds, his potency remains inseparable. All the universes exist in him, and he is present in his fullness in every one of the atoms that are scattered throughout the universe at one and the same time. Such is the primeval Lord whom I adore. I adore the same Govinda, the primeval Lord, in whose praise men who are imbued with devotion sing the mantra suktas told by the Vedas by gaining their appropriate beauty, greatness, thrones, conveyances, and ornaments. I worship Govinda, the primal Lord, residing in his own realm, Golok, with Radha, resembling his own spiritual figure, the embodiment of the ecstatic potency, possessed of the 64 artistic activities, in the company of her confidants, Sakhis, embodiments of the extensions of her bodily form, permeated and vitalized by his ever blissful spiritual rasa. Moving over to page 74 in the book. I worship Govinda, the primal Lord, who is Shyam Sundar Krishna himself, with inconceivable, innumerable attributes, whom the pure devotees see in their heart of hearts with the eye of devotion tinged with the salve of love. I worship Govinda, the primal Lord, who manifested himself personally as Krishna and the different avatars in the world in the form of Ram, Nrsimha, Vamana, etc. as his subjective portions.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose effulgence is the source of the undifferentiated Brahman mentioned in the Upanishads, being differentiated from the infinity of glories of the mundane universe, appears as the indivisible, infinite, and limitless truth. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is the absolute substantiative principle, being the ultimate entity in the form of the support of all existence, whose eternal potency embodies the threefold mundane qualities, sattva, rajas, and tamas, and diffuses the Vedic knowledge regarding the mundane world. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose glory ever triumphantly dominates the mundane world by the activity of his own pastimes, being reflected in the mind of recollecting souls as the transcendental entity of ever blissful cognitive rasas. Lowest of all is located Devidam, the mundane world. Next above it is Maheshdam. Above Maheshdam, the abode of Mahesh. Above Maheshdam is placed Haridam, abode of Hari. And above them all is located Krishna's own realm named Goloka. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, who has allotted their respective authorities to the rulers of those graded realms. The external potency Maya, who is of the nature of the shadow of the Chit potency, is worshipped by all people as Durga, the creating, preserving, and destroying agency of this mundane world. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, in accordance with whose will Durga conducts herself. Just as milk is transformed into curd by the action of acids, but yet the effect of curd is neither the same as nor different from its cause, milk. So I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, of whom the state of Shambhu is a transformation for the performance of the work of destruction. The light of one candle being communicated to other candles, although it burns separately in them, is the same in its quality. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, who exhibits himself equally in the same mobile manner in his various manifestations. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, who, assuming his own great subjective form, who bears the name of Shesha, replete with the all-accommodating potency and reposing in the causal ocean with the infinity of the world in the pores of his hair, enjoys creative sleep, Yoga Nidra. Brahma and other lords of the mundane worlds, appearing from the pores of the hair of Mahavishnu, remain alive as long as the duration of one exhalation of the latter, Mahavishnu. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, whose subjective personality, Mahavishnu, is the portion of portion. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, from whom the separated subjective portion, Brahma, receives his power from the regulation of the mundane world. Just as the sun manifests some portion of his own light in all the effulgent gems that bear the names of Suryakanta, etc. Somebody else want to read the last?
I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, whose lotus feet are always held by Ganesh upon the pair of tumuli protruding from his elephant head, in order to obtain power for his function of destroying all the obstacles in the path of progress of the three worlds. The three worlds are composed of the 9 elements: fire, earth, ether, water, air, direction, time, soul, and mind. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, from whom they originate, in whom they exist, and into whom they enter at the time of the universal cataclysm. The sun, who is the king of all the planets, full of infinite effulgence, the image of the good soul, is as the eye of this world. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, in pursuance of whose order the sun performs his journey, mounting the wheel of time. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, by whose conferred power are maintained the manifested potencies that are found to exist of all virtues, all vices, the Vedas, the penances, and all jivas, from Brahma to the meanest insect. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, who burns up to their roots all fruitive activities of those who are imbued with devotion, and impartially ordains for each the due enjoyment of the fruits of one's activities, of all those who walk in the path of work, in accordance with the chain of their previously performed works, no less in the case of the tiny insect that bears the name of Indragopa than in that of Indra, king of the Devas. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, the meditators of whom, by meditating upon him under the sway of wrath, amorous passion, natural friendly love, fear, parental affection, delusion, reverence, and willing service, attain to bodily forms befitting the nature of their contemplation. I worship that transcendental seat known as Shveta Dweep, whereas loving consorts, the Lakshmis, in their unalloyed spiritual essence, practice the amorous service of the Supreme Lord Krishna as their only lover, where every tree is a transcendental purpose tree, where the soil is the purpose gem, all water is nectar, every word is a song, every gait is a dance, the flute is the favorite attendant, effulgence is full of transcendental bliss, and the supreme spiritual entities are all enjoyable and tasty, where numberless milk cows always emit transcendental oceans of milk, where there is eternal existence of transcendental time, who is ever present and without past or future, and hence is not subject to the quality of passing away even for the space of half a moment. That realm is known as Goloka only to a very few self-realized souls in this world. On hearing these hymns containing the essence of the truth, the Supreme Lord Krishna said to Brahma, Brahma, if you experience the inclination to create offspring by being endowed with the real knowledge of the glory of Godhead, listen, my beloved, from me to the science set forth in the following five shlokas. When the pure spiritual experience is excited by means of cognition and service, bhakti, super excellent unalloyed devotion characterized by love of Godhead is awakened towards Krishna, the beloved of all souls. The highest devotion is obtained by slow degrees by the method of constant endeavor for self-realization with the help of scriptural evidence, theistic conduct, and perseverance in practice.
Want to read the last few? Yes.
These preliminary practices of devotion, sadhana bhakti, are conducive to the realization of loving devotion, than whom there is no superior well-being, who goes hand in hand with the attainment of the exclusive state of supreme bliss, and who can lead to myself. 61. Abandoning all meritorious performances, serve me with faith. The realization will correspond to the nature of one's faith. The people of the world act ceaselessly in pursuance of some ideal. By meditating on me by means of those dates, one will obtain devotion characterized by love in the shape of the supreme service. Listen, O Vidhi, I am the seed. That is the fundamental principle of this world of animate and inanimate objects. I am Pradhan, the substance of matter. I am Prakriti, material cause, and I am Purush, efficient cause. This fiery energy that belongs especially to the Brahman that inheres in you has also been conferred by me. It is by bearing this fiery energy that you regulate this phenomenal world of animate and inanimate objects.
Okay.
Shri Guru Bhyo Namah Harihi Om. Ishvara Paramah Krishna Satchit Ananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam Sahasrapatra Kamalam Gokulakyam Mahatpadam Tatkarnikaram Tadhama Tadanantam Shasambhavam Karnikaram Mahadyantram Shatkonam Vajrakilakam Shadanga Shatpadi Sthanam Prakritya Purushena Cha Premananda Mahananda Rasena Vastitam Hiyat Jyoti Rupena Manuna Kama Bijena Sangatam Tatkinjalkam Taram Shanam Tatpatrani Shriyamapi Chaturasram Chatparitah Shvetadvipakhyam Adbhutam Chaturasram Chaturamurtesh Chaturdhamat Chatushkritam Chaturbhip Purusharthaischa Chaturbhir Hetubhir Shulair Dashibhirannadham Urdhvadho Dikvidhikshopi Ashtabhir Nidhibhir Jushtam Ashtabhi Siddhibhistatha Manurupaischa Jashabhir Dikpalai Parito Vratam Shamair Goraischa Raktaischa Shuklaischa Parshadharshabhaihi Shobhitam Shaktibhistabhir Adbhutabhi Samandataha Evam Jyotirmayo Devah Sadananda Paratparaha Atmaramasya Tasyasti Prakritya Nasamagramaha Mayaya Ramamanasya Naviyogastayasaha Atmanaramaya Reme Tyaktakalam Sasrakshaya Niyati Saramadevi Tatpriya Tatvasham Tada Tallingam Bhagavan Shambhur Jyoti Rupa Sanatanaha Yayoni Saparashakti Kamo Bijam Mahadharehe Lingayonyatmika Jata Imamaheshwari Prajaha Shaktiman Purushasoyam Lingarupi Maheshwaraha Tasminnavira Bhullinge Mahavishnur Jagatpatihi Sahasrashirsha Purushaha Sahasrakshas Sahasrapat Sahasrabahur Vishvatma Sahasrangsha Sahasrasuhu Narayanasa Bhagavan Apastasmat Sanatanat Avirasit Karanarno Nidhi Sankarshanatmakaha Yoga Nidram Gatastasmin Sahasram Shaswayam Mahan Tadroma Bilajalesho Bijam Sankarshanasya Cha Haimanyandani Jatani Mahabhuta Vratanito Pratyandam Evamekam Sharekam Shadvishate Swayam Sahasamurtha Vishvatma Mahavishnu Sanatanaha Vamanangad Asrijad Vishnum Dakshinangad Prajapatim Jyotirlingamayam Shambhum Kurchadeshadavasrijat Ahankaratmakam Vishwam Tasmad Etad Vyajayat Athattaistirvidhairveshair Leelam Udvahatah Kila Yoganidra Bhagavati Shtasya Shri Pasangata Sasrakshayam Tato Nabhistasya Padmam Viniryayao Tannalam Hena Nalinam Brahmano Lokamadbhutam Tatvani Purvarurhani Karanani Parasparam Samavaya Prayogacha Vibhinnani Prathak Prathak Chitchaktya Sajjamanoth Bhagavan Adipurushaha Yojayanmayaya Devo Yoganidramakalpayat Yojayatva Tutanyeva Pravivesha Swayam Guham Pravishte Tasminsto Jivatma Pradabudhyate Sanityo Nitya Sambandha Prakatische Paraivasa Evam Sarvatma Sambandham Nabhyam Padmam Harerabhut Tatra Brahma Bhavad Bhuyas Chaturvedi Chaturmukha Sanjato Bhagavat Shaktya Tatkalam Kilachoditaha Sasakshayam Matim Chakre Purava Samskara Samskritaha Dadarsha Kevalam Dhwantam Nanyat Kimapi Sarvataha Uvacha Puratastasmai Tasya Divya Saraswati Kama Krishnaya Govinda He Gopi Jana Itiyapi Vallabhaya Priyafanir Mantram Te Dasyate Priyam Tapastvam Tapa Etena Tava Siddhir Bhavishyati अथ तेऽपि स सुचिरं प्रीणन् गोविन्दमव्ययन् श्वेतद्वीपपतिं कृष्णं गोकुलस्थं परात्परं प्रकृत्या गुणरूपिण्या रूपिण्या पर्युपासितं सहस्रदलसम्पन्ने कोटिकुञ्जल्कबृंहिते भूमिश्चिन्तामणिस्तत्र कर्णिकारे महासने समासीनं चिदानन्दं ज्योतिरूपं सनातनं शब्दब्रह्ममयं वेणुं वादयन्तं मुखाम्बुजे विलासिनी गणव्रतं सैस्वैरंशैरभीष्टुतम् अथ वेणुनिनादस्य त्रयीमूर्तिमयी गतिः स्फुरन्ति प्रविवेशाशु मुखाब्जानि स्वयंभुवः गायत्रीं गायतस्तस्माद् अधिगत्या सुरोरजः संस्कृतश्चादिगुणना द्विजताम् अगमस्ततः त्रय्या प्रबुद्धोऽथवधिर्विज्ञाता तत्त्वसागरः तुष्टाववेदसारेण स्तोत्रेणानेन केशवम् चिन्तामणिप्रकरसद्मधुकल्पवृक्ष लक्षावृतेषु सुरभिरभिपालयन्तम् लक्ष्मीसहस्रशतसम्भ्रमसेव्यमानं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि वेणुं क्वनन्तमरविन्ददलायताक्षं बर्हावितं समसिताम्बुरसुन्दराङ्गं कन्दर्पकोटिकमनीयविशेषशोभं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि आलोलचन्द्रकृतसद्वनमाल्यवंशी रत्नाङ्गदं प्रणयकेलिकलाविलासं श्यामं त्रिभङ्गललितज्ञतप्रकाशं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि अङ्गानि यस्य सकलेन्द्रियवृत्तिमन्ति पश्यन्ति पान्ति कलयन्ति चिरं जगन्ति आनन्दचिन्मयसरुज्ज्वलविग्रहस्य गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि अद्वैतमच्युतमनादिमनन्तरूपम् आद्यं पुराणपुरुषं नवयौवनं च वेदेषु दुर्लभमदुर्लभमात्मभक्तो गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि पन्थास्तु कोटिशतवत्सरसम्भ्रगम्यो वायोरथापि मनसो मुनिपुङ्गवानं सोऽप्यस्ति यत्प्रभर्सिन्यविचिन्त्य तत्त्वे गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि एकोऽप्यसौ रचयतं जगदण्डकोटिं यच्छक्तिरस्ति जगदण्डशयायदन्तः अण्डान्तरस्थपरमाणुचयान्तरस्थं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि यद्भावभावितधियो मनुजास्तथैव सम्प्राप्य रूपमहिमा सनयानभूषाः सुक्तैरमेव निगमप्रतिथैस्तुवन्ति गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि आनन्दचिन्मयरसप्रदभाविताभिस्ताभिर्य निजरूपतया कलाभिः गोलोक एव निवसात्युखिलात्मभूतो गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि प्रेमाञ्जनच्छुरितभक्तिविलोचनेन सन्तः सदैव हृदयेषु विलोकयन्ति यं श्यामसुन्दरमचिन्त्यगुणस्वरूपं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि रामादिमूर्तिषुकलानियमेन तिष्ठन् नानावतारमकरोद्भुवनेषु किन्तु कृष्णः स्वयं समभवत् परमपुमान्यो गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि यस्य प्रभा प्रभवतो जगदण्डकोटि कोटिष्वशेषवसुधादिविभूतिभिन्नं तद्ब्रह्मनिष्कलमनन्तमशेषभूतं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि माया हि यस्य जगदण्डशतानि सूते त्रैगुण्यतद्विषयवेदवितायमाना सत्त्वावलम्बिपरसत्त्वं विशुद्धसत्त्वं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि आनन्दचिन्मयरसात्मतया मनःसु यप्राणिनां प्रतिफलं स्मरतामुपेत्य लीलायतेन भुवनानि जयत्यजस्रम् गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि गोलोकनाम्नि निजधाम्नि तले च तस्य देवी महेश हरिधामसुतेषु तेषु ते ते प्रभावनिचया विहिताश्च येन गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि सृष्टिस्थितिप्रलयसाधनशक्तिरेका ध्याये भुवनानि बिभर्ति दुर्गा इच्छानुरूपमपि यस्य च चेष्टते सा गोविन्दमादिपुरुषम् क्षीरं यथा दधिविकारविशेषयोगात् सञ्जायते न हि ततः पृथगस्ति हेतोः यः शम्भुतामपि तथा समुपैति कार्यात् गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि दीपार्षे विहिदशान्तनमभ्युपेत्य दीपायते व्रतहेतुसमानधर्मा यस्तादृगे च विष्णुतया विभाति गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि यः कारणार्णवजले भजति स्म योग निद्रामनन्तजगरण्डसरोमकूपः आधारशक्तिमवलम्ब्य परं स्वमूर्तिं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि यस्यैकनिश्वसितकालमथावलम्ब्य जीवन्ति लोमविलजा जगदण्डनाथाः विष्णुर्महान् सह्यस्य कलाविशेषो गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि भास्वान्यथाश्मशकलेषु निजेषु तेजः सीयं कियत्प्रकटयद्यपि तद्वदत्र ब्रह्माय एष जगदण्डविधानकृता गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि यत्पादपल्लवयुगं विनिधाय कुम्भ द्वन्द्वे प्रणामसमये सगणाधिराजः विघ्नान् विहन्तुमलमस्य जगत्त्रयस्य गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि अग्निर्मही गगनमम्बुमरुद्दिशश्च कालस्तथात्ममनसीति जगत्त्रयाणि यस्माद्भवन्ति विभवन्ति विशन्ति यं च गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि यच्चक्षुरेष सविता सकलग्रहाणां राजा समस्तसुरमूर्तिरशेषतेजाः यस्याज्ञया भ्रमति संभृतकालचक्रो गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि धर्मोत्थपापनिचयः श्रुतयस्तपांसि ब्रह्मादिकीटपदगावधयश्च जीवाः यद्दत्तमात्रविभवप्रकटप्रभावा गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि यस्त्विन्द्रगोपमधवेन्द्रमहोस्वकणव बन्धानुरूपफलभाजनमातनोति कर्माणि निर्दहति किन्तु च भक्तिभाजां गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि यं क्रोधकामसहजप्रणयादिभीति वात्सल्यमोहगुरुगौरवसेव्यभावैः सञ्चिन्त्य तस्य सदृशीं तनुम् आपुरेते गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि श्रियकान्ताकान्तः परमपुरुषः कल्पतरवो द्रुमा भूमिश्चिन्तामणिगणमयी तोयममृतम् कथागानं नाट्यं गमनमपि वंशी प्रियसखी चिरानन्दं ज्योतिः परमपि तदास्वाद्यमपि च स यत्र क्षीराब्धिः स्रवति सुरभिभ्यश्च सुमहान् निमेषार्थाख्यो वा व्रजति न हि यत्रापि समयः भजेष्वेतद्वीपं तमहमिह गोकोकमितियं विदन्तस्ते सन्तक्षितिविरलचारा कटिपये अथोवाच महाविष्णुर्भगवन्तं प्रजापतिं ब्रह्मन्महत्त्वविज्ञाने प्रजासर्गे च चिन्मतिः पञ्चश्लोकीम् इमां वेद्यं वत्सा दत्तां निबोध मे प्रबुद्धे ज्ञानभक्तिभ्याम् आत्मन्यानन्दचिन्मयी उदेत्यनुत्तमा भक्तिर्भगवत्प्रेमलक्षणा प्रमाणैस्तत्सदाचारैस्तरभ्यासैर्निरन्तरम् बोधयम् आत्मनात्मानं भक्तिम् अत्युत्तमां लभेत् यस्याश्रयस्करं नास्ति यया निवृत्तिमाप्नुयात् या साधयति मामेव भक्तिं तामेव साधयेत् धर्मानन्यान् परित्यज्य मामेकं भज विश्वसन् यादृशी श्रद्धा सिद्धिर्भवति तादृशी कुर्वन्निरन्तरं कर्म लोकोऽयम् अनुवर्तते तेनैव कर्मणा ध्यायन् मां परां भक्तिमिच्छति अहं हि विश्वस्य चराचरस्य बीजं प्रधानं प्रकृतेः पुमांश्च मया हितं तेज इदं बिभर्षि विधे विधे हि त्वमथो जगन्ति हरि ओम्।
जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जना यमुनतीरवनचारी यमुनातीरवनचारी राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन 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 यमुनातीरवनचारी यमुनातीरवनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन Jamunatiravanachari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari Bo Jaya Vishnu Patman Sakshikacharya Ashtotra Shri Shrimad Shila Abhay Chandran Vedanta Sai Maharaj Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vranda Ki Jai Nama Acharya Shri Thakur Haridas Ki Jai Prem Se Koho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vranda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyam Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Ganga Devi Ki Jai Yamuna Mahi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Rani Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Harinama Sankirtan Ki Jai Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Shri Shri Gauranitai Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Govinda Ji Ki Jai Jagannath Balaram Sutra Devi Ki Jai Go Premanandi All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Jai Shri Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Krishne Swadhamopagate Dharmagnanadibhisaha Kalau Nashtadrishan Esha Trishamesha Puranarko Dhunoditaha. This is Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, and chapters 18. The residents of Jambudvip offer prayers, and today we are hearing from Prahlad Maharaj, text number 9. Do we have the text for people? No. So I'll just sing the verse. Swasti astu vishvasya kala prasidatam dhyayantu bhutani shivam mithodhiya manashta bhadram bhajataradhokshaje aveshyatam no matarapyahetuki. Why don't we repeat the word for word? Swasti, Swasti. Auspiciousness. Astu, let there be. Vishvasya, of the entire universe. Kala, the envious. There's parentheses here with Srila Prabhupada's notation. Almost everyone. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Prasidatam. Let them be pacified. Jayanto. Let them consider. Bhutani. All living entities. Shivam. Auspiciousness. Mitha. Mutual. Dhiya. By their intelligence. Manaha. The mind. Cha. And bhadram. Calmness. Bhajatat. Let it experience. Adhokshaje. In the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is beyond the perception of mind, intelligence, and senses. Aveshyatam. Let it be absorbed. Naha. Our. Matihi. Intelligence. Api. Indeed. Ahaitaki. Without any motive. Translation. May there be good fortune throughout the universe, and may all envious persons be pacified. May all living entities become calm by practicing bhakti yoga, for by accepting devotional service, they will think of each other's welfare. Therefore, let us all engage in the service of the Supreme Transcendence, Lord Shri Krishna, and always remain absorbed in thought of Him. Please repeat. May there be good fortune, throughout the universe, and may all envious persons be pacified. May all living entities become calm by practicing bhakti yoga. For by accepting devotional service, they will think of each other's welfare. Therefore, let us all engage in the service of the Supreme Transcendence, Lord Shri Krishna, and always remain absorbed in thought of Him. There's a nice purport here by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The following verse describes a Vaishnava. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Just like a desire tree, a Vaishnava can fulfill all the desires of anyone who takes shelter of his lotus feet. Prahlad Maharaj is a typical Vaishnava. He prays not for himself, but for all living entities, the gentle, the envious, and the mischievous. He always thought of the welfare of mischievous persons like his father, Hiranyakashipu. Prahlad Maharaj did not ask anything for himself. Rather, he prayed for the Lord to excuse his demoniac father. This is the attitude of a Vaishnava, who always thinks of the welfare of the entire universe. Have we Bhagavad Gita? Yeah. The Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavata Dharma are meant for persons who are completely free of envy. Parama niramatsaranam. Therefore, Prahlad Maharaj prays in this verse, Khala prasidatam. May all the envious persons be pacified. The material world is full of envious persons, but if one frees himself of envy, he becomes liberal in his social dealings and can think of others' welfare. Anyone who takes up Krishna consciousness and engages himself completely in the service of the Lord cleanses his mind of all envy. Manascha bhadram bhajatad adhokshaje. Therefore we should pray to Lord Narasimhadev to sit in our hearts. We should pray, Bahir Narasingho, Hridaye Narasingho. Let Lord Narasimhadev sit in the core of my heart, killing all my bad propensities. Let my mind become clean, so that I may peacefully worship the Lord and bring peace to the entire world. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has given us a very fine purport in this regard. Whenever one offers a prayer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one always requests some benediction from him. Even pure devotees, nishkama, devotees pray for some benediction, as instructed by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his Shikshashtaka. Ayi nandatanajam kankaram patitam mam vijame bhavambodhao kripayat tava pada pankaja sthitadhuli sadrisham vichintaya. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from the ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. In another prayer, Lord Chaitanya says, Mama janmani janmanishware bhavatad bhakti rahaitaki tvai. Life after life, kindly let me have unalloyed love and devotion at your Lordship's lotus feet. When Prahlad Maharaj chants Om Namo Bhagavate Narasimhaya, he prays for a benediction from the Lord. But because he is also an exalted Vaishnava, he wants nothing for his personal sense gratification. The first desire expressed in his prayer is Swasti Astu Vishwasya. Let there be good fortune throughout the entire universe. Prahlad Maharaj thus requested the Lord to be merciful to everyone, including his father, a most envious person. According to Chanika Pandit, there are two kinds of envious living entities. One is a snake, and the other is a man like Hiranyakashipu, who is by nature envious of everyone, even of his father or son. Hiranyakashipu was envious of his little son Prahlad. But Prahlad Maharaj asked a benediction for the benefit of his father. Hiranyakashipu was very envious of devotees, but Prahlad wished that his father and other demons like him would give up their envious nature by the grace of the Lord and stop harassing the devotees. Kala prasidadam. The difficulty is that the kala, the envious living entity, is rarely pacified. One kind of kala, the snake, can be pacified simply by mantras or by the action of a particular herb. Mantroshadhivashah sarapa kantakena nivaryate. An envious person, however, cannot be pacified by any means. Therefore, Prahlad Maharaj prays that all envious persons may undergo a change of heart and think of the welfare of others. If the Krishna consciousness movement spreads all over the world, and if by the grace of Krishna everyone accepts it, the thinking of envious people will change. Everyone will think of the welfare of others. Therefore, Prahlad Maharaj prays Shivam Mithodhya. In material activities, everyone is envious of others, but in Krishna consciousness, no one is envious of anyone else. Everyone thinks of the welfare of others. Therefore, Prahlad Maharaj prays that everyone's mind may become gentle by being fixed at the lotus feet of Krishna. Bhajatad adhokshaje. As indicated elsewhere in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Savai manah Krishna padada vindayoho And as advised by Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita 1865, Manmana bhava madbhakta, one should constantly think of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. Then one's mind will certainly be cleansed. Chedo darpanamarjanam. Materialists always think of sense gratification, but Prahlad Maharaj prays that the Lord's mercy will change their minds and they will stop thinking of sense gratification. If they think of Krishna always, everything will be all right. Some people argue that if everyone thought of Krishna in that way, the whole universe would be vacated because everyone would go back home, back to Godhead. However, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that this is impossible because the living entities are innumerable. If one set of living entities is actually delivered by the Krishna consciousness movement, another set will fill the entire universe. Om Agnanatimarantasya Gnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guroho Shri Yutaparakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hare Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Prahlad Maharaj has already prayed. This section of the Srimad Bhagavatam is describing all different residents of Jambudvip. We don't even know where Jambudvip is or what it is. We can only think in terms of the Bay Area or the United States or the world as we know it. But things are different than we think they are. And the structure of the universe is different than modern science will tell us. And Jambudvip is one section of the world on which we happen to be living, but there are other living entities living in other sections of Jambudvip, living entities that we can hardly even imagine. And this chapter is describing how they all worship the Lord in their various respective ways, and it gives some of the realizations that they express and how they pray to the Lord, and so many different examples are given here. We've heard here, Shukdev Goswami, I'll just go back a couple of verses. Shukdev Goswami continued, "My dear king, Lord Narasimhadev resides in an attractive land known as Harivarsha. In the 7th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, I shall describe to you how Prahlad Maharaj caused the Lord to assume the form of Narasimhadeva. Prahlad Maharaj, the topmost devotee of the Lord, is a reservoir of all the good qualities of great personalities. His character and activities have delivered all the fallen members of his demoniac family. Lord Narasimhadev is very dear to this exalted personality. Thus, Prahlad Maharaj, along with his servants and all the denizens of Harivarsha, worships Lord Narasimhadev by chanting the following mantra." What is that mantra? He says, Om Namo Bhagavate Narasimhaya Namastejas Tejase Avirbhava Vajranakha Vajradrudangstra Karmashayan Randhaya Tamo Grasa Om Swaha Abhayam Atmani Bhuyashtha Om Kshram. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Lord Narasimhadev, the source of all power. O my Lord, who possesses nails and teeth just like thunderbolts, kindly vanquish our demon-like desires for fruitive activity in this material world. Please appear in our hearts and drive away our ignorance, so that by your mercy we may become fearless in the struggle for existence in this material world. Now, that brings us to today's verse. Swasti astu vishvasya khala prasidatam dhyayantu bhutani shivam mithodhya manashta bhadram bhajatar adhokshaje aveshyatam no matriapya hetaki. May there be good fortune throughout the universe, and may all envious persons be pacified. May all living entities become calm by practicing bhakti yoga, for by accepting devotional service they will think of each other's welfare. Therefore, let us all engage in the service of the Supreme Transcendence, Lord Sri Krishna, and always remain absorbed in thoughts of Him. We're just now coming from Mathura Dham, Sri Vrindavan Dham. And I'm feeling a little jet lag. So if I sound or look tired, please forgive me. By fate or by Krishna's mercy, for some reason, in recent weeks I've had the good fortune of visiting Mathura Dham down the road from Vrindavan several times in the last few months. Many times, at least 5-6 times I've been there. And generally we try to make it a point when in Mathura to stop by some of the auspicious holy places that are there, such as Krishna's Janmasthan. The famous temple is there. Of course, there have been many temples built in the same spot through successive generations over thousands of years. Most recently, there was a temple built around the 1930s or the 50s or something like that by Pandit Madan Mohan Malaviya and several other wealthy scholars and industrialists. Anyway, so what I always notice when visiting that temple is that over the doorway of the temple is inscribed a Sanskrit verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam. And it's this verse, very auspicious verse. So it really is an incredible prayer that Prahlad Maharaj is making here. And the mantra that he chants has already been mentioned in the last text. He's praying that all the demon-like desires that we have for fruitive activity in this material world may be eliminated from our hearts. And then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur points out for us in his commentary, Mantram jabitva prarthayate swastiti. Having chanted his mantra, now he makes his request. This is how things work, especially in India. So Prahlad Maharaj, as Prabhupada is pointing out in the purport, it's not necessarily a bad thing if we approach the deity and offer prayers and then make some requests, but we have to ask for some things that are eternal. In the Bhagavad Gita as well, Krishna tells us the difference between things that are real and things that are not real. What is it? Nasato vidyate bhavo, na bhavo vidyate sata, ityadi. Things that are real do not end, and things that are not real do not sustain. So we can think about that. We should think about that very carefully, but on some other occasion, because today we're talking about something very transcendental. And Prahlad Maharaj is praying for things within that transcendental realm, things that are only eternal, things that are only of real value. In the Mundaka Upanishad, there's a very nice verse that states that an intelligent, broad-minded, and aware person, having surveyed all the possibilities that life offers, comes to this conclusion that there's nothing here that's not karma. So what is the point of adding more karma to karma or trying to subtract karma from karma? It's just still going to be nothing but karma. Parikshya lokan karmachitan brahmano nirvedam ayan nastya krita kritena. And he comes to a sense of healthy disgust with all endeavors in the material realm. And tad vijnanartham sa guru meva vigachet. That is the person that is instructed to find a bona fide spiritual master. If you have seen through the sham of relative activities, fruitive activities, temporary activities, and their results in this material world, if you've really seen through that, then, and you want to know what is absolutely true, what is real in the sense that we've just defined, then you have to go to a guru. And you have to go with firewood in hand, means you have to be prepared to serve. So this was, in fact, Prahlad Maharaj's example also. Again and again and again throughout his various prayers here in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Prahlad Maharaj is always demonstrating his supremely pure character as a what Prabhupada says here, as a typical Vaishnava. Have you noticed? In this world we're practicing Vaishnavas. We are probate Vaishnavas. That's what Bhaktivinoda Thakur calls bhakti abhas, a kind of a shadow. We're practicing a shadow sort of form of bhakti. Alias of bhakti, to use the local terminology. So the program is running, of course. It cannot be deleted. It's what we are. But it's minimized. We've double-clicked on our eternal constitutional position. And it's running in the background. So this is our position in this material world. And we get distracted, therefore, by so many different desires and so many different ambitions and so many different perceived needs and wants and concerns, misconceptions, ityadi. These all fall into the general category of what Krishna calls dvandva moha in the end of chapter 7. Dvandva moha, the illusions of duality. And Krishna says that as long as one is not completely pure in heart and has not eliminated the reactions of past sins, and certainly has not finished with sinful activities in the here and now, Krishna says for that person to sustain a mature commitment to pure devotional service, it will be very difficult. Most likely he will not do it. And therefore later on in the Bhagavad Gita also he admits all the figures are there. Nothing is hidden here. All the figures are very clear. Krishna says most people do not persevere in Krishna consciousness. In fact, out of many thousands of people, one even cares enough to try. And out of many of those who try, hardly one really is successful. Simply because it's very stubborn. These long, deep-rooted desires that we have cultivated, it's called samskara in Sanskrit, impressions that are left on the heart, they're fixed. The film of Maya is so stubbornly clinging to our hearts that it's very difficult for us. But it's on account of this contamination over many, many lifetimes that we find it very difficult to persevere or to attain perfection in pure devotional service. Therefore Krishna says, Yesham tvantagatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvandva moha nirmukta. Those who are freed from this dvandva moha, te dvandva moha nirmukta bhajante mam dridhavrata. They're the ones who are worshipping me with firm conviction. So Prahlad Maharaj is of that class. So in a sense, he's not a typical Vaishnava because most of us, as I mentioned already, we're just practicing Vaishnavas. But he is a typical Vaishnava in that he's typical of what our ideal is and what in the Vaikuntha realm the real is. There are two things always. There's the ideal and then there's the real. So the real Vaishnavas, they're mostly in the Tripad Vibhuti, in the three-quarter creation of the Lord, that is to say, in the spiritual realm. And those of us who come here, we're struggling hard to become Vaishnavas, to regain our Vaishnava status, so to speak. So it's a little difficult for us. But Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur continues here. He says, Vishwasya swasti prarthane kalasyapi bhavet. He includes even the rascals. He includes the whole universe in his prayer. His prayer is for the welfare of the entire universe, including even the rascals. Kalasyapi bhavet. Tatcha sadhu pidam vina nasyad ityata aha. And one may say that, well, how can there be any auspicious for the universe when people are abusing the devotees? Because the demons in this realm, they don't appreciate devotional service. They don't like to be reminded of devotional service. And they are not so kindly disposed towards the devotees also. So kala prasidatam. Therefore he says kala prasidatam. May all the rascals be pacified. It's a fact. As long as we are misbehaved and as long as the devotees are being mistreated, then it's very difficult to have any auspiciousness. Just in recent months in Vrindavan, it's been a great controversy for a long time because the Yamuna is being very severely treated, offended in many ways. Yamuna River is that purifying entity that brings all souls to devotional service. And we are just like she's mother. Just like Prabhupada often says, why do we take care of cows and appreciate cows so much? Because they're like mothers. They give us their milk, they give us so many things. And if we kill them after taking their milk, then what kind of relationship is that? So in the same way, in North India, Yamunotri, I guess that would be Uttaranchal, maybe Himachal Pradesh, I don't know. But Yamuna Devi, Jai, thank you. Yamuna Devi appears there, and she springs from the mountains, and she bounds through these cascades through the hills, pristine, pure water from Chinmaya Rasa, pure waters from Goloka Vrindavan. And then when she gets to a place called Dagpatar, then immediately 90% of her water is shunted into Punjab on one side and into UP on the other side. 10% of the water leaves that place and continues down towards Delhi. And it begins to get polluted just a few miles downstream at Yamunanagar, an industrial center named, ironically enough, after the very river that it's polluting nowadays. At Wazirabad, there's another barrage there, and whatever 10% of the Yamuna was left, it's all going into Delhi. And then at the bottom of Delhi, at Okhla, there's another barrage, and that water's returned, post-Delhi. And it's really not water. One of the most respected Vaishnava priests in Vrindavan, the chief priest of the Radharaman temple, his name is Srivatsa Goswami. About 15 years ago, he announced to a colleague, another scholar, that today I have broken with Yamuna. And this person was very surprised to hear what kind of statement is this coming from Srivatsa Goswami. He says, 500 years my ancestors have been bathing in this river. Today I simply could not do so. Because, he also pointed out, the reason is that all of the water that is in the Yamuna at Vrindavan and Mathura has been processed either by a factory or it's gone through a human body and come out the other end. So this 10% of the water is coming from leaving Delhi and continuing down into Vrindavan. And Vrindavan is the worst hit of all the places that you would want to keep the Yamuna pure, at least to external vision pure. It's really the worst place. So much so that the local farmers now are agitating and not exactly rioting, but there was a big march, several thousand strong, to Delhi a month or so ago, just to protest that they've had so many, just like they had the Ganga action plan many years ago, decades ago, they've also had this Yamuna action plan to try to, and it doesn't work somehow or other, because the consciousness remains impure. Just as the Kaliya Nag was polluting the Yamuna 5,000 years ago, so the modern day Kaliyas are doing the same thing. The consciousness is the same. Until the consciousness changes, then one cannot be fixed in pure devotional service. So this is the idea. Yesham tvantagatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvanva moha nirmukta bhajante mam dhratavrataha. Krishna emphasizes this point early on in the Gita because we don't get it. We are living in a society that is antithetical to devotional service, and we're thinking that we're going to make advancement in devotional service despite that fact. Srila Prabhupada, therefore, in his later days in particular, gave this very cogent instruction that the remaining 50% of his mission is to purify the social body. The spiritual body is already purified. Nothing else needs to be purified except the way that we eat, sleep, mate, and defend in this world. There are some ways of doing that are relatively sustainable, and there are other ways that are not. And therefore he says here, what is the question of Vishwasya Swasti, auspiciousness for the entire universe, when the great souls are being mistreated? What to speak of other great souls, even Yamuna, we have no respect. We drink all of her water and return urine. This is what we do. So these are some things here. Then he goes on to say that therefore he prays, Kala prasidatam, may the envious persons be satisfied or pacified. Sri Viraraghavacharya, a famous Bhagavatam commentator from the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, he defines for us who are these kalas. And he says, Durmati, the fools, people who can't think very well. And he says, Prasanno bhavatu, krodhadikam parityajya sumatir bhavet. He says, may these durmatis become sumati. So then one will ask, obviously, well, how does that happen? That's the next thing he says. Kala prasidatam kraudyam tyajatu sadhum apidyatam api paraspara vairanam bhutanam paraspara ghatam vina swasti na bhaved ityata aha jayantu. Someone may say that how can these kalas be pacified? They're killing each other. Do we see this in this material world? People killing each other? There are people working round the clock calculating how to wipe out our faith at this very moment. And they kill each other as well. One reporter said, we don't want to knock anyone else's religion, of course, but one reporter put it very nicely. He said, Islam has jagged borders wherever it exists in the world. Someone said, if not all Muslims are terrorists, then why is it that all terrorists are Muslims? But I don't want to knock anyone too much. So the idea is that we're killing each other in this world also. So this is tamasic sort of cultivation of faith. Faith is always good, but when we mix it with tamoguna, or when we mix it with rajoguna, here in the West, in America in particular, and also now in India, especially in Mauritius, if you've ever been there, you can see that the religion there is also very passionate. I was shocked because when I first went to Mauritius, I saw there are Hindu temples everywhere, beautiful Tamil temples especially, but there's not one of them for Vishnu. Almost invariably there for any demigod under the sun, but not Vishnu, not Krishna. There's maybe one or two Vishnu temples in the whole island, because it's mundane Hinduism. It's completely materially motivated, just towards temporal things in this material world. It's a business opportunity that the Indians are smart enough to have recognized how things really work. We've already been there, haven't we? You make your You praise someone, then you make your prarthana. You submit your order. So, it's true that it's a fact that one cannot have anything of really lasting value in this world without the blessings of superiors. And a superior person will recognize that. And so it's not wrong in that sense. But it's not the teachings, it's not the ultimate teaching of the Vedas either. So it's mixed, in other words, with particularly Rajaguna. And here we see, particularly with Christianity in this country, very, very materialistic also. Sometimes you see these people, they make advertisements. If you want it now, you can have it all just by the grace of Jesus and this sort of thing. It's a pretty common human characteristic that's fairly universal. But this is not Prahlad Maharaj's approach. And that kind of religion also, wherever it exists in the world, and it is pretty much worldwide, it doesn't really represent the real spirit of what dharma is. And it cannot purify the heart because it's impelled by the impure desires within the heart. So Bhagavatam is kicking all of this out. I was listening to a lecture that Prabhupada gave in Hindi. And what did he say? How did he put it? He said, in sabko, jharu dete hain hum. We sweep it all out. The Bhagavatam is kicking out what it calls kaitava dharma, cheating religion. It's rejected in the third verse. You get no further than 3 verses into the Bhagavatam, and it says, if you're interested in this, go look elsewhere. We're not selling that here. So here it's something very deep and something very pure and something very transcendental and elevating is being offered here. But it's kind of like a pearls before swine sort of a situation. You don't cast your pearls before swine, they can't appreciate it. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is giving a whole succession of different options and different objections that one might hear about this. The first one is that, well, how can there be any auspiciousness in the universe when they're mistreating even devotees, what to speak of anyone else? And that's true. So therefore he prays, Kala prasidatam, may these envious persons be pacified. People who are so impelled or compelled by their envy to mistreat even the great souls. I mentioned Yamuna in particular, but there are so many others. How can there be any auspiciousness? Then he goes on to say, well, okay, so one may not mistreat devotees, and one may even manage to stop killing each other as well in this world. But how is he going to do that? Therefore he says, jayantu. The word jayantu is used here. May they meditate. Jayantu bhutani shivam mithothiya. And meditation means, according to Vijayadhwaj Tirtha, he's a commentator in the Madhvacharya Sampradaya, he says very nicely, he says, Vishwasyarthe swasti astu nrasingha prasidatam he harivarshajana. This is Prahlad Maharaj speaking to the residents of Harivarsha, and he says that may this Lord Narasimhadev be merciful upon us. And he says, Bhadrani, the word Bhadra means auspicious. The intention here is that Nriharim Dhyayantu. We should meditate upon Lord Narasimhadev. Here in particular, this is easy to do. Have such a beautiful deity of Lord Narasimhadev on the right-hand side of the altar. And then he describes his form a little bit. He says, Shivam Nitya Shuddham Manodhya Shastra Mananena Upasana Lakshana Dhyanena Chamanascha Bhadram Sakala Mangala Rupam Harim Bhajatat No Asmakam Matir Apiyadhokshaje Aveshyatam Ahaitaki Phalabhi Sandharahita. What that means is that when we meditate, we think of each other's welfare because we're meditating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose form is all auspicious, Sakala Mangala Rupam, in the words of Vijayadhwaj Tirtha. And when we do that, what does it mean? He says, Shiva. What does Shiva mean? Auspiciousness. But he defines it particularly. He says it means Nitya Shuddham, always pure, or eternally pure. Because we're sometimes pure. We're pure in the morning. By the time we get back from work, we're all filmy again, isn't it? So, Nitya Shuddham, that's the goal that we're aiming at. And then the word is also used here, manodhya, with mind and intelligence. He says this means Shastra Mananena, by reflecting on the meaning of Shastra. We can take little index cards and write down verses like today's verse, for example, a very auspicious verse to learn. And then we can purify our intelligence while we're at the red light. What else are you going to do? Meditate on the light? Look at the guy in the car next to you? What are you going to do? Manmanabhava, this is the idea. Smaranam is one of the 9 processes of devotional service. It means memorization. You learn some verses. I was very pleased because sometimes when I lecture in other places, you get to this verse, what is it? The last one that we sang before the class. A lot of people don't know that verse. Used to be that everyone in the movement knew that verse. So, anyway, this is Shastra Mananena, and particularly Upasana Lakshana Dhyana. Meditation on worshipping the Lord, and the Lord who is to be worshipped. This is the idea, because the mind becomes bhadra. It becomes pure by meditating on Sakala Mangala Rupa Hari, the Lord whose form is the essence of everything auspicious. Then, there may still be some further objections, because someone may think that, well, that's okay, but we're materialists, and how can there be any auspiciousness in this world without sense gratification? People do think like this, isn't it? Particularly in California, I think. People think like this. I can say like this because I'm a native Californian. But, so therefore he says, to reverse that doubt, he says, Tarapi bhaktim vina bhadram apyabhadram evet yata aha adhokshaje Shri Krishne nomat sahitanam vishvesham apimatira haitaki. One should particularly meditate on worshipping Krishna. Then the mind becomes auspicious. When the mind is auspicious, we can truly think of the welfare of another person. Right? And finally, he has to qualify what is that mati, because the subject of this verse is, after all, mati. Mati means your intelligence, your consciousness in general, how it's being purified, we hope. And then the very last word of the verse, what is it? Ahaitaki. Aveshyatam no matiryapi ahaitaki. This is used in a collective sense. In Sanskrit, we do this sometimes. Singular noun, intelligence, but it's used in a collective sense for the entire humanity, the intelligence of humanity, or the mind of humanity, the consciousness of humanity. Aveshyatam no matirapya haitaki. May our minds enter more deeply into that spirit. And what exactly is that spirit of bhakti, of auspiciousness? Ahaitaki. There's no hetu. This is an important point. I remember many years ago, it was a few decades ago at least, my tabla teacher, who happens to be an American, he wrote an essay on the topic of arranged marriage. Because he had an arranged marriage. He married a lady from Andhra Pradesh. So he was talking about why does this institution there in traditional Bharatiya Sanskriti? Because the concept of love is fundamentally different than we know in the West. Generally, and not only in the West, now even everywhere. Modern society, I should say. The concept of love is that I love you because you are this or that or this or that. His point of the essay was very radical, actually. He said, the preliminary requisite, the prerequisite, the essential thesis, the postulation with which you approach this issue should be at the outset that there's absolutely no reason that I love you at all. Because love has no hetu. Love that has a hetu is destroyed when the hetu is destroyed. Hetu means cause. If there's a reason that I love someone, then that love will be destroyed as soon as that reason is vaporized. And that reason will vaporize eventually, because everything in this world dissolves, is it not? We've already discussed that in the beginning. What is the difference between the real and the non-real? So all of our desires, all of our attachments, all of our hetus, all of these things, they all vaporize in due course of time, and we don't know when. Sometimes it's sooner, sometimes it's later. But his point is that unless I only love my spouse because this person is my spouse, and for no other reason, then that's called dharma. That kind of love, it works. Because it's ahaitaki. Relatively speaking, ahaitaki. Of course, we know that on an even deeper level, even in terms of mundane dharma in this world, there's still some very subtle hetu. But when we come to bhakti, devotional service, it's completely transcendental. And Rupa Goswami has defined it. He says, Anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karmadi anavratam anukulyena krishnanushilanam bhaktiruttamam. I was in Hawaii once, and I went to see one professor there at University of Hawaii at Manoa. He's a famous Sanskrit scholar, so I had a list of questions that I wanted to ask him about things from the Shrutis. And I had hardly shared with him one of my questions when he just dismissed them all. He said, no. He said, think of the man on the street. Think of the pedestrian approach to these topics that you're trying to ask me about. He said, what does Krishna say in Bhagavad Gita? Anybody know this verse? Karmanyevadhikaraste. Everybody knows that verse. Karmanyevadhikaraste. Your only right is to work. Karyam, kaj. In modern parlance, the word is coming from karya. We call it kaj. Means you have to go to work. So your only right is to work hard. And then, karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana, but you cannot have the paycheck. Whatever you produce as a result of your work, you cannot have it. You've got to give that up. Who's going to accept this? And not only that, but ma karma phalehetur pur. You cannot even indulge in the pride of being the result of that fruit, because it's already written on your forehead, is it not? When you appear in this world, likhidam api ladate pronsitam kasamartha. Who is able to overcome what is written on your forehead? It's like a barcode. Everybody's got a barcode on their forehead, and only the devas can read it. We don't see it. But everything that is happening to us in this life, it's already set in stone at the very beginning. You look back in your chart and you can see everything plays out exactly the way it should. So to think that we are the fruit, the thing that we can actually make a difference in this world is also fancy. It's also a kind of a silly, everything is already written. It's all just is an illusion. I mean, we can make a difference, but not through the realm of karma. That's the point. Through spiritual life, we can make a difference. Because once you step outside of this paradigm, then you're dealing with reality again. We're dealing with unreality now. So, ma karma phala hetur bhur, you cannot even take pride in your work. That's what it comes down to at street level. You've got to work hard, and you cannot have the fruits of your action. You can't even take pride in your work. And finally, the coup de grace, what is it? Last line. Mate sangostoga, and you cannot not work. In Sanskrit land, we all try to cover both bases. This is called anvaya vyatireki in logic. There's a positive coverage and negative coverage. And we see that therefore we have two things. We have vidhis and we have nishedhas. There's always a negative prohibition and a positive injunction at the same time. For Vaishnavas, we know this in the most simple way. What is the famous verse? Always remember Krishna, never forget. Sarva vidhi nishedha syura etayori vekinkara. All these vidhis and nishedas, they should be considered the servants of this principle that you should always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. Smartavyam satatam Vishnur, vismartavyam najachachit. That's called positive and negative pervasion. So, this is the idea. Your only right is to work. You can't have the fruits of your work. You can't even take pride considering that you're causing the results of that work, and you cannot not work. He said, how are you going to convince anybody to do this? Very difficult. Therefore we chant, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We take prasadam, we engage our senses in the service of the Lord, and what happens? Sarvopadhi vinirmuktam tatparatva. We become tatparatva. What does tatparatva mean? You become as transcendental as the Lord. Not that you become the Lord in all respects, but we are shorn of all this dross, all this external contamination that we misidentify with at present. It's all removed for us, and then we see ourselves that, wait a minute, I'm actually on this pure platform already. This is what I am. That's liberated state. Sarvopadhi vinirmuktam, freed from all the dross of Maya and all the, what we discussed earlier as dvandva moha, and all the misconceptions and all the false goals and all the sins and the piety and everything all put together in the realm of illusion, freed from all that, then we become tatparatvena nirmalam. We become as pure as the Supreme Lord Himself. And how do we do it? Hrishikena, what is it? Hrishikena sevanam bhakti ruchite. We take these senses and we use them in the service of the person who actually owns them and controls them. We cannot control our senses. Therefore, he says here, it's one of the things that he's mentioning here is that one has to become Krishna conscious by the Lord's mercy. Here, I'll read it again. Then one's mind will certainly be cleansed. Materialists always think of sense gratification, but Prahlad Maharaj prays that the Lord's mercy will change their minds and they will stop thinking of sense gratification. Mercy is necessary. We cannot do anything on our own. We cannot even, if you tie your shoes in the morning, if you can remember how to do that, are you the cause of that fruit? Or is it karma? And when the karma disappears, then what do you do? Does it make sense? It's going to go away. You're not going to be able to remember. Yesterday, I saw this in my mother before she died. Her memory span was about 3 days, max. If you don't get killed before that, which is also a possibility, you can be killed before that. But if you're not killed before that, then you can look forward to a gradual disintegration of all your psychophysical facilities and assets. Everything with which you identify and consider to be your real self. This is the skill set that's reincarnating every lifetime. I'm bringing this stuff with me because it's what I really am. No, not necessarily so. We don't even know who we are. This is the extreme implications of the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna, he says some very strong things to Arjuna, but we don't know that they're strong things until we go through the school of hard knocks. Then we realize the profundity of what he's saying. For example, he says, Yam hi na vyathayantyete purusham purusharashabha samadukha sukham dhiram somratatvaya kalpate. We think from our position of phantasmagoria, from our position of inexperience or immaturity, if not foolishness, durmati, as Viragavacharya called it. We think this means nothing bothers me, I smile and I sit with half-closed eyes and twirl a flower, and then I'm liberated. It's not like that. It means that when we go through all of the experiences that life can hurl at you, and we don't even know the full panoply of what life can hurl at us yet, But after we gain some years of experience in this world, then we get some sense, we hope. If you're hearing these things all along, then you get some sense of what this actually means. To be unaffected by, what does Krishna say? Sukha and dukkha, all modes of duality, it's not an easy thing to do. It's really not an easy thing to do. And we're far more identified with all these things than we even are aware. The word jnana, we translate it as knowledge all the time, but what does it actually mean? It actually means awareness, to be aware of something. So anyway, there are some heavy things in Bhagavad Gita about this, and the idea is that we somehow or other we become transcendental to this material existence, whether we like it or not. If we do nothing, then by default everything is going to be taken away from us. And at that time we're not prepared. And we suffer in a major, major way. It drives people crazy sometimes. It can ruin your chances for another human birth if you're not prepared for dealing with the end of this one. We have to think about these things very soberly while we can. Jabalagatana me tapana vyapai tabalaga kari hari seva, one poet said. As long as we have the opportunity, we have to use it. Use it or lose it, as they say here in America. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is pointing out for us here many of the doubts that may be raised. And finally, this is the materialist, he doubts that, well, how can there be any happiness without sense gratification? Therefore, he says, adhokshaja. There is something that is beyond these senses. There is something that is beyond the realm of sense gratification. And it's not necessarily that it's not sensual even, but it's supra-sensual. Not super-sensual. Supra-sensual means in an extra-mundane way. This is devotional service. Why do we have such a stubborn attachment to, for example, society, friendship, and love? These are the main things that motivate a person who's not too gross in this material world. If you're really gross, you only think about your senses. Gross. You think about eating and sleeping and mating and defending. That's really gross. But if you're a little more subtle, then you think about society and friendship and love and prestige and knowledge and beauty and things like this. These are the attachments that impel us constantly, perpetually, through all of our endeavors and activities. They color our consciousness in so many ways, and always. It cannot be avoided. Why? It's not wrong, in the sense that it's not necessarily unreal, but we misdirect this tendency towards the temporary, and therefore we're doomed to frustration when those things dissolve, which they will. So he says here, therefore, that one should consider that the Lord is adhokshaja, adha akshaja. Akshaja means something which is born from vision. And adha akshaja means that's far below what we're talking about here. Adhokshaja, Krishna. The supreme transcendence, Prabhupada here translates it. Therefore, let us all engage in the service of the supreme transcendence, Lord Shri Krishna, and always remain absorbed in thought of Him. So it concludes with Mati, and we're also mentioning here that it has to be ahaitiki. Real devotional service that is not anymore colored by these mundane considerations. Devotional service that is not mixed with temporary concerns. That devotional service is ahaitiki. It has no hetu. It's what we are. It's the default position for the soul proper. So this is what Prahlad Maharaj is praying for, and the amazing thing is that Prahlad Maharaj can actually do this. How often do we see this? Not very much. Very rare. At least within our experience, most of us, it's very rare to find a Vaishnava of this caliber, and yet Prabhupada says that he's typical. This is what a real Vaishnava actually is. So, anyway, these are a few things we can think about with this verse. Anybody have any questions or comments? Otherwise, to take it to complete the loop here, I'll just go back to the beginning. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna also, Suhrin mitraryudasina madhyastha dvaishya bandhushu sadhushu apicha papeshu samabuddhir vishishyate. This is chapter 6. A person is considered more advanced when he regards honest well-wishers, affectionate benefactors, neutral mediators, the envious, friends and enemies, pious and sinners, all with an equal mind. That's what he's doing here. That's what Prahlad Maharaj is doing here. It's not so easy. Yeah.
So Prabhu, this verse is, I think it's very timely and the verse was so nice. But my question is, Prabhu, even talking about the welfare of others is like second stage, but within a congregation, it's so painful. Means no matter how much ever like we stay in the movement or practice the principles, the moment anybody else does something better, there is some kind of unhappiness. And at that time, I'm not thinking about the welfare of them. There is a pinch in the heart. So how do we really implement these principles within the small congregation that we live so that we can expand it for others?
A very interesting comment. Shall I pinch your heart a little further?
Sure, please.
There is a very noted scholar by the name of Kapila Vatsyayana. Anyone ever heard of her? I think she used to be in a government minister somewhere in India. No. Kapila Vatsyayana. She's mainly an art scholar. And being a scholar of things rasik, she was aware of Rupa Goswami's rasa theory. And Bharat Muni's rasa theory, and there's a long history of rasa theory in Indian literature. But she made a very, very interesting comment. She said, this is according to, what's his name? Pavan Varma, I think. She said, the sthayi bhava of all Indians is irshya. That is to say, envy is the natural state of the Indian psychology. It's not coming from me, but I just thought I would mention it because your question reminded me of that. But the fact of the matter is that when we're in this world, and as long as we're misidentified with all these bodily, we talk in general terms of the bodily concept of life, but it's actually the bodily concepts of life, or the bodily misconceptions of life. And all the things that we think we need, and it gets extremely subtle even, apart from the fact that if he's got a BMW, for example, I've got to have my BMW as well. It's more subtle than that. If this person is, doing very well in society and is getting a lot of prestige, then that bothers me also. And in America, we have a nice term for it. We say keeping up with the Joneses, because it's assumed that the neighbors are called Mr. and Mrs. Jones. So whatever you see them do, it bothers you. So, here I guess it's keeping up with the Patels or whatever. But the idea is that in this material world, as long as we are colored with this misconception of bodily identification, then we are going to be impelled by what the mind and what the ego and what the senses all dictate. That's why we say we've become the servants of these things. Our natural affection and initiative and volition have all been perverted, Prabhupada says. Perverted means blown inside out, where it's all about me now. And that's what we have to deconstruct, to use the modern terminology. We have to deconstruct that. And we do so by what I call the nuclear physics of psychology. What do you do in nuclear physics? You start picking around and poking around at the molecular level and restructuring things at that very fundamental level. So in Krishna consciousness, we also do this. We do this through the agency of Harinam, Harinama Sankirtana. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught that there are 7 effects of that Harinam Sankirtana, which I think we know those. But the idea is that through chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, this bodily misconception of life can be very carefully deconstructed. And once we have to do that very carefully, because if we're not guided very carefully, we may end up in a worse condition than we started. It's possible. And therefore, as I mentioned already from the Upanishads, a person who really wants to know about this, that person has to go to a guru. Has to go. Abhigachet. He has to go. And that qualified spiritual master will be able to guide us in our efforts at chanting the holy name. But basically it all comes down to chanting Hare Krishna. Simple thing. Very, very simple thing. It has to be simple because spiritual life is difficult enough for us. And in this age, we're all, we've got so many, what do we call, disadvantages of so many kinds. It's kind of like deficiencies. When you're in, deficiencies. When you're in college, you know, sometimes they don't let you take a particular class until you remove your deficiencies. You've got language deficiencies, so you've got to take maybe a German class or something like that. And then once you've got your language credits, then you can take this other class. So it's kind of like that. That's called anartanivritti in Rupa Goswami's language. Removing deficiencies or removing disadvantages or removing the things that are obstructing our progress. Once the anarthas have been removed through good association and through the engagement in devotional service that good association always brings, then I like to give the example from biology. Then it's kind of like when you introduce a foreign species into a particular ecosphere. If that species has no natural predators, then it just takes over everything, right? Like in Texas, where I spent a lot of time, they have what they call kudzu plant. And it thrives in places that are very wet, like, anyway. So, it can choke a whole river because the stuff just grows so fast because there's nobody really eating it. No, there's nobody in the environment already who cares about it, and so it takes over. And in a similar way, if you put, very fast multiplying bacteria into a petri dish, for example, after some time, it just suddenly shoots way up, the population growth. At that rate of multiplication, it just really goes up. They call it a J-curve of biological growth. So it's kind of like that with spiritual life. When you remove these obstructive elements in the form of the misconceptions and the bad habits, and especially the sinful activities that we've already discussed from chapter 7, then it becomes very natural because the process is so powerful on its own that we are automatically elevated, and very quickly so. But it all comes down to a good association. Therefore, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, Sadhu Sangha Sarva Shastra Kahe, Lava Matra Sadhu Sangha Sarva Siddhi Hoy. Sarva Siddhi. Every perfection you can get. Is that okay? It's a very general answer, but it was a general question.
It's a very nice answer. It really feels so nice to be in that position, but it's a long way to go. Thank you very much, Prabhu, for the nice answer.
Anything else? Other comments or questions?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. You mentioned that everything is written on your forehead, but then there's a...
Hitopadesh mentions that. I'm just
but there's a free will which we can, make the changes. But that free will changes is only limited to the spiritual world, or it could be in the material world as well. I mean, it probably could get reflected in the material world as well, though.
Well, in the material world, which is called Devi Dham, everything here is actually, it's just a facade. It's a very artfully constructed facade to make us think that we're in an environment where we actually have some controllership, and to make us think that we're the Ishvara, which is what we have come into this world to do. So it's all very carefully constructed through the agency of our karma and through the careful planning and management of these demigods and other administrators of our karma, like Shani, for example. If you haven't experienced his technique, just wait around sometime and you will know exactly what I'm talking about. So, the Lord has these various agents who are implementing our karma, and you really cannot work around them. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, when he says, Daivi Hesha Gunamayi Mama Maya Duratyaya, if his Maya cannot be overcome, then that means all the way down the line. And Shani is one of the last agents of karmic dispensation in that chain of command. And there's really nothing you can do because they're in charge of everything and you don't really have much say in this matter. But this world is all being very carefully constructed. This sense in which we can actually make a difference in the world, and this romantic inspiration that we chase after life after life after life, that's called Daivi Maya. It's called, or if you prefer, we can call it Dvandva Moha. But it's an illusion. The real fact of the matter is that even karma itself, if in the ultimate sense, if you want to think about it from Krishna's perspective, even karma itself is a sham. It's just a facade. The whole system of karma is just, it's in order to give Krishna some pseudo-objectivity to hide behind so that he can do whatever he wants to us. It works out this way. That here in Bhagavad Gita, what's being presented to Arjuna, he says, Arjuna, if you want to surrender unto me, then you can just turn to me, and he says twice, Manmanabhava mad bhakto ityadi. 2 times he says that. Then everything will be fine. On the other hand, if you don't want to surrender to me, then that's fine. You don't have to surrender to me. But it's understood that I'm going to turn you over to Durga Devi, and she's going to beat the daylights out of you. Because she's got this Trishula, you've seen, she's riding on the tiger. What is that? Who is it for? And what do those points represent? Tapatraya. The miseries coming from ourselves, the miseries coming from others, and the miseries coming through fate. You cannot get out. You cannot get out. So that's really that's all it comes down to. Ultimately, even this elaborate, sophisticated, hyper-complex system that we call dharma and karma and vikarma and all this stuff, it just has no validity whatsoever. Really what it comes down to is that Krishna is the Supreme Lord, and what do we want to do about it? That's all it comes down to. If we simply humble ourselves before the Lord and chant His holy name, then He pulls us out of it. All karmic laws are rendered elastic by devotional service. My godbrother Guru Das put it very eloquently. Devotional service renders all physical laws elastic. There are no rules for Krishna. He can do anything. He can break any rule. He can make any rule. He can do anything he wants. If you're in his good books, you've got no problem. On the other hand, as we say, Rakhe Krishna Mare Ke, Mare Krishna Rakhe Ke. So do not be Hiranyakashipu, or do not join his sampradaya, because you'll get the same end as him. That's the bottom line. That's really all there is. In human form of life, it's really that simple. And that's why we see that the same essential principles, when funneled or colored through these tamasic and rajasic religions, it does come down to pretty much the same thing. They all teach that you've got to surrender to God. Otherwise, He's going to zap you in one way or another. And, I mean, we look at it a little bit more sophisticated than that, but, that's the point. Is it clear? So now the ball is in our court. And now we have to chant sincerely, and then everything can go from there. Yes, please.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhu, Prahlad Maharaj, when he was in the womb, and the Narad Muni recognized him like he was a great soul, right? So is there any pastime of Prahlad Maharaj's previous life, how he came as a great soul?
Yeah. Who knows about this? Prahlad Maharaj's previous life. I'm thinking of, Oh, evidently you weren't here last week.
Okay.
So you can talk to Govinda Charan about this. He has your answer for you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
You mentioned about that Matruspashastu Konteya Shitosna Sukha Dukkha, one should be remain detached from happiness or distress, but when it comes
we don't even know. We don't even know just how profound that verse is. We don't know. We have no frame of reference.
You told that as the life passes, you start realizing that what it is.
This is the point.
Yeah. So in that situation, how a devotee should react?
Well, you react however you want to. If you want to take shelter of Krishna, you will react appropriately. And to the extent that you've decided not to take shelter of Krishna, you're going to have a hard time. And that's just the way it is. That's why I'm saying that ultimately this whole system of karma, it has no validity or relevance. It's really about you and the holy name, and that's it. How are you going to do it? But my point is this. Some years ago when I was undergoing tremendous difficulty, my godbrother Keshava Bharati Goswami Maharaj gave me some very good instructions. He said, you have to understand this thing. In devotional service, we talk about taking shelter of Krishna's lotus feet. What does it mean to take shelter? In what circumstances does one require shelter? When there's an onslaught of some sort, when the rain is pelting down on you, you require a roof or an umbrella or some form of shelter. So you cannot have this concept of taking shelter without the simultaneous existence of challenge, difficulty, obstructions, troubles, obstacles. It's going to come. And here's the thing that we have to recognize. If in fact we believe that not a blade of grass is waving in the breeze without the sanction of the Supreme Lord, which is what the Upanishads teach, then we have to accept that whatever difficulties that we have to undergo in this life, we cannot blame him or her or that or this. It's only coming from Krishna, and you've got to deal with that at that level. Sooner or later, we've got to come to that point. All this other stuff is just illusion.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Yes, please.
Coming from Krishna in the sense that that's what we need to learn. Krishna is engineering a situation because we need to learn certain things.
For devotees. For the non-devotees, they are actually working within the system of karma, and that system exists only for them. But once we make the determination to invest our own volition outside of the realm of karma and in the realm of devotional service, from that point on, it's just a matter of reciprocation between ourselves and the Supreme Lord. This is the important thing to consider. Devotional service is not a function of karma. Here in America, where people have no concept of karma to begin with, karma is synonymous with dharma. I always say that in America we don't have one word that subsumes all the nuances of meaning that are there in the word dharma. And the reason we don't have that word in English is because we don't have the concept in English that might require that word. And, this karma is actually the same thing as dharma, as opposed to vikarma or papa or whatever you want to call it. But it's very important to recognize that devotional service is not in that category. In some places where people are very pious, it's very easy to confuse devotional service with ordinary dharma. And people do this all the time. And it prevents them from chanting offenselessly. So, but here it's maybe not that much of an issue. But the point is to recognize that this devotional service is outside of the bounds of karma, of dharma and karma altogether. It has nothing to do with any of these things. It's directly mediated by Krishna. Once we make the decision that, as that Ramayana, that verse is there, what is it? Sakradeva prapannaya tavasmiti chayachate abhayam sarvabhutebhyo dadamye tadvratam mama. Lord Ramchandra says that once the person surrenders unto me and says, I'm yours, from that point on, he has no fear. This is my vow that I'm working with that person from that point. And once we chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare, you're toast in this world, because he's going to take your word, he's going to call your bluff. And now we have to deliver. So when we chant Hare Krishna, we're asking that, just like that song we sing, Gurudev Kripa Bindu Diya Koro Edase Trinapeka Atihina, you're asking, please make me more humble than a blade of grass. It's not a comfortable process to be made more humble than a blade of grass. The only way to do that is you have to be tested. And chanting Hare Krishna is essentially all these songs that we sing, they're all just purports and expansions on the essential meaning of the Mahamantra, which is ineffable, the spirit with which we chant, which is perhaps ineffable. But this is the idea. Is that okay? Yeah. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. When we come to the devotional service and when we go out, we'll be so nice to others, but as soon as comes with the family members, like parents, for small things we'll get angry soon. And in my personal life, like when my father was here, for small thing I used to get angry. By feeling myself, why is like this?
It is a curious fact of human existence, at least in modern society, that we treat the people closest to us the worst. It's a fact. And in devotional service, I think we have the great blessing of Krishna's help and Krishna's guidance, because he will allow us to undergo circumstances or experiences that really teach us to value what we have in this world, and especially to behave appropriately in the relationships that we've been placed into. Because when they're removed, then there's nothing you can do. And especially if they're removed in a way that's not auspicious, then that's even worse. It's part of the process of which we also pray for. Shakale Shamman Kurite Shakti Dehonata Jatha Jatha. He says, may I have the ability to appropriately interact with all, to show respect appropriate to the relative position of all the different people in this world with whom I have to interact. So that's part of the process. It may or may not be mundane, but the point is that it's a skill set, if you will, that we require if we're going to interact appropriately in the spiritual world. That's why we're here in this world, because we got a little bit too weird in the spiritual world, and it was decided that he's got to work some things out. And this is where we've been thrown in order to do that. Relationships. My godbrother Bhakti Vidyapurna Swami is very big on this point. He's always preaching about, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings can be divided into three areas: Sambandha and Abhidheya and Prayojana. And unless you have the Sambandha first and foremost, it's really not feasible to even consider any question of application, which is abhideya, or prayojan, which is to reach your goal. It's just not going to happen. Relationships are very important, and we also have to recognize that they require constant investment, constant maintenance, upkeep, and a lot of energy put into that. But it's not. The Mayavadis would have us believe that even mundane relationships are unimportant, and we just become callous to them because they're from Maya, and Maya's there's Brahma Satya Jagan Mithya. That mentality is very pervasive in society, and it can infect us as well, but it shouldn't. Because in devotional service, relationships are all important. They matter. And we should see our mundane relationships even as a blessing of Krishna in order to enable us the opportunity to interact appropriately with the Vaishnavas in the spiritual world, because we're going to have mothers and fathers in Goloka. Everyone does. Etyadi. Anything else? I wanted to drink some water, but it just looks like it's for a deity instead of... I look at my body and then I look at this cup and they don't match.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you so much for the wonderful class. As His Grace Vasika Prabhu just last Wednesday told that you are going to meet a real sadhu, and we really felt as soon as you started and the... So everything...
I think like a Gandharva too, that's why I'm back here again and again and again. People say you've been doing this for many lives, and I say, is that a compliment or an insult? If it's true, that means I've been failing for many lives, doesn't it?
I have just one small question. Like you told, like in the response of one of the answer, like Mare Krishna Rakhe ke, Rakhe Krishna Mare ke. If you just depend on Krishna, then everything is fulfilled, or we don't have to think about anything else. So my question is, like when we worship Lord Narasimha Dev and all other form of the Lord, like what mood it should be? Like when we know that Krishna can fulfill our all desire, like every protection, he can give. Then why we require to worship Lord Narasimha Dev or this kind? So it always creates a doubt in the mind.
I attended a very, very nice lecture given by His Holiness Indraduna Swami about 7 or 8 years ago, maybe more, almost a decade ago now, in Govardhan. At the southern end of Govardhan Hill, there's an old Narasingha temple there. And Maharaj spoke on this topic that, he said, when I first came to this place, I was thinking that it doesn't seem to fit. In Vrindavan, everyone is absorbed in mainly worshipping Krishna in the mood of the gopis, and Vraja Leela is kind of not the formality of Aishwarya or Vaikuntha Bhava that we associate with Lord Narasimha Dev. So I was wondering that how does Lord Narasimha Dev really fit into this picture here? And he said, then on reflecting on this, and maybe through experience also, Krishna enlightened me that, the fact of the matter is that if we at all intend to enter into Vraj Leela or into Braj Bhakti, then we have to go through all these steps that Rupa Goswami has outlined in the Nectar of Devotion. And we've already mentioned Anartha Nivritti is one of those very crucial processes. And Anartha Nivritti is precisely what Prahlad Maharaj has been praying for in the previous verse to Lord Narasimha Dev, because he's called Bhakti Vighna Vinashaka, Narasimha Dev. We value Lord Narasimha Dev, if not as our Ishta Deva, or the central deity in our hearts, but that's also possible because it takes all kinds. But at the very least, we value Lord Narasimha Dev because he is very important to destroying the obstacles that prevent us from advancing further in bhakti and protecting devotional service. And Srila Prabhupada enjoined the devotees also to worship Lord Narasimha Dev for the protection of this society when he saw that there were some serious obstructions or some serious threats. So we worship Lord Narasimha Dev because we need Lord Narasimha Dev. And you can say that pretty much about all the different incarnations. Rupa Goswami, I've been reading the Laghu Bhagavatamrita lately, he talks about the various positions of the personalities of Godhead, although they're all non-different, but they're all different at the same time. And he talks about how Krishna is, manifests the opulences of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the superlative degree, comparatively speaking, but they're all non-different. In some places in Prabhupada's books, he emphasizes the need to appreciate the fact that all the different forms of the Lord are non-different. Otherwise we become sahajas and think one is lower and one's higher. That's offensive. And yet in other places, Prabhupada emphasizes the need for exclusivity, at least in the sentimental sphere, and to cultivate a particular personal relationship with one of the forms, which should be clear to us when we're done with an Arjuna Vritti and we've become very advanced in devotional service. So both things are there. Is that okay?
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Anything else? I'm just going to read this verse one more time because it's so nice. Swasti astu vishvasya khala prasidatam chhayantu bhutani shivam mithosya manashcha bhadram bhajatad bhokshaje aveshyatam no matirapyahaitaki. May there be good fortune throughout the universe, and may all envious persons be pacified. May all living entities become calm by practicing bhakti yoga, for by accepting devotional service, they will think of each other's welfare. Therefore, let us all engage in the service of the Supreme Transcendence, Lord Shri Krishna, and always remain absorbed in thought of Him. Oh, one more. Okay.
Sorry. So, Prabhu, the question is especially with the children.
Especially with children?
Like how to teach them, and for us also. But initially they do devotional service, even if they do little, they are being appreciated and they are become center of attraction, so they become more and more enthused. But there comes a stage when we have to tell them that it's not that we should do devotional service only for appreciation, because the more
devotional service only for what?
Appreciation, that everybody like tells that you're good or you're doing for this or that. So how do we inculcate that the devotional service should be done for the pleasure of Krishna or Guru and Krishna, especially in the kids, and cultivate the right mood for devotional service and make them enthusiastic at the same time?
The best training that one can impart to subordinates is not didactic. And I was talking to someone yesterday about Tamal Krishna Goswami, with whom I was fortunate enough to have a lot of association. And it was maybe 20 years after the fact that I came to appreciate that the way that he interacted with people in general, and with me also personally, was such that I was being trained up and didn't even know it. Because he was that expert. With kids in particular, they don't really have developed intelligence, and so you cannot make any appeal to the intelligence. Prabhupada said from birth to 5 years of age, you just let them go completely wild. No discipline whatsoever, because they cannot be disciplined. From 5 to, whatever their Poganda age is, then you discipline them very strictly, and mainly through example. And then after that, you have to be friends, because they're not going to take your instruction beyond the teenage years either. So, those are some guidelines. But in general, the overwhelmingly predominant rule of thumb is that example is better than precept. Whatever the parents are doing, and I should say not doing, but whatever the parents are enjoying, that's where the children go. Whatever the parents are spontaneously attached to and engaged in, that's what their children are going to follow. Because it's not an intellectual thing. It's happening at a transcendental level to that. So, other than that, things really depend on individual circumstances. We say desha kala patra, but those are the general principles. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhu, for the wonderful class. I just wanted to let devotees know that Prabhu is giving class tomorrow evening at the temple for the Sunday feast. And also, there's a program at our home today evening, the Bhakti Vriksha program. So, devotees are welcome to come. Only request is you can just let me know if you're coming so we can make enough prasadam for all the devotees. So that starts at 6:30 at our home. If you talk to me, I'll give you the address also. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhu. And let's welcome Prabhu with a big Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna. Param Vijaya.
And Mataji, Prabhu's wife, Shri Murti Mataji is also here. She's a senior disciple of His Holiness Giriraj Maharaj. So she is very attached to Rukmani Dwarakadish. Actually, they are in Vrindavan now. And it's her attachment to see the LA deities that brought them back here. And because of that, we have their association. So we should really thank her also and welcome them. Hari Bol! Hari Bol! Hari Bol!
Jai. All glory to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna devotees. Now we are going to have Guru Puja for Srila Prabhupada. So kindly, carefully and efficiently take out the books and Shastra deities and just place inside. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
He gave. Hopefully he can fit it. Because when we bought, he had to be very small. Then I told him make smaller than that. But he gave me the size of our deities. But I think we can use it. Because he's saying I cannot make smaller than that, it will be too small. Right. That's what the guy was saying. I will bring it tomorrow. Sure. How is everything else?
Hare Krishna.
I didn't do anything, I just visited.
We sit down or we stand up, or how do you do that? Yeah. Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma श्री गुरु चरण पद्मा केवल भागति सदना पंदमुई सावधान माते पंदमुई सावधान माते जहर प्रसादे भाई भवतारिया जाए जहर प्रसादे भाई भवतारिया जाए कृष्ण प्राप्ति होय जहाँ होइते कृष्ण प्राप्ति होय जहाँ होइते गुरुमुख पद्मा वाक्य चिते करियायक गुरुमुख पद्मा वाक्य चिते करियायक और ना करी माने आशा और ना करी माने आशा श्री गुरु चरणे रति ऐसे उत्तम गति श्री गुरु चरण रति उत्तम गति जे प्रसादे पूरे सर्व आशा ये प्रसादे पूरे सर्व आशा चखुदान दिल जे जने जने प्रभु से चखुदान दिल जे जने जने प्रभु से दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशित
दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशित प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ है ते अविद्या विनाश जाते प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ है ते अविद्या विनाश जाते वेद गाय जहर चरिता वेद गाय जहर चरिता श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अधम जनार बंधु श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अधम जनार बंधु लोकनाथ लोके राजीवाना लोकनाथ लोके राजीवाना अहो प्रभु करो दया दे हमारे पद छाया अहो प्रभु करो दया दे हमारे पद छाया हे बेटा कुछ प्रभुवाना हे बेटा कुछ प्रभुवाना प्रभु कर दया पे हमारे पद छाया प्रभु कर दया पे हमारे पद छाया प्रभु कर दया तो हमारे पद छाया प्रभु कर दया दे 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 हमारे पद छाया जय प्रभु पादा प्रभु पादा प्रभु पादा जय प्रभु पादा जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय गुरुदेव 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 नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे
जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे।
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Oh, Nitai Gaura, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Nama Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama He Gopal Govinda Ram Sri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita Shri Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita Shri Rup Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Das Raghunath Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Nitai Gauranga Nitai Gauranga Nitai Gauranga Nitai Gauranga Jai Jai Sacinandan Jai Sacinandan Jai Sacinandan Gaura Hare Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Oh Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Jai Gaura Hari Prabhupada. Jai Jai Gurudev, 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 Gurudev.
जय ओम विष्णुपद परम सर्वजगाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद श्री भाई चरणान भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी महाराज श्री प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। नमाचार्य श्री ठाकुर हरिदास की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण को गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंद राधा कुंद गोवर्धन की जय। वृंदावन धाम की जय। नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की जय। गंगा देवी की जय। यमुना मई की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। तुलसी रानी की जय। समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। इस्कॉन बीवीथी फाउंडर आचार्य श्री प्रभुपाद की जय। गौ प्रेमानंदी। All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Jai Shri Prabhupada.
It's in your pocket.
Namo Brahmani Vaishnave Swapapunyam Patam Rajam Vishvasho Navajayate Sadhira Vijajam Jitendriya Taheka Jivapele Pashaya Sagare Tadama Jivayati Loba Moya Sadomati Takachita Katina Samsare Krishna Badadayamai Karibada Jivajai Swaprasad Nadelabai Sayanamitabau Radha Krishna Gunagau Pimadako Shittananitai Mahabhagavat Prasadam Ki Jai.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Once again, we would like to welcome Mukunda Datta Prabhu and Sri Murti Mataji and Bhrugupati Prabhu by loudly singing. Haribol! Hare Krishna. After Prasadam, we are going for book distribution today. Last weekend, from 3 weeks, we are doing Srimad Bhagavatam sets. And we have a goal of distributing 25 Srimad Bhagavatam sets for Narshinga Chaturdasi. That is coming on 23rd. So, devotees who would like to interested after Prasadam, we'll go out. Last weekend, or last 2 weekends, we have done around 17 sets. Yeah. Actually, last week was very purifying experience. We started around 2:30 and Shiva Kumar Prabhu was there with us, Lavanya Mataji's husband. So we started 2:30 and still 6:30, not even one set gone. It was too hot. We were going door to door and house to house, and people are not taking. They took small books anyway, but Bhrugupati Prabhu is, everybody knows, is distributing from past 30 years books, and he gave me a couple of years before this poster, which contains the 6 Goswamis prayers. So I always carry with with me and he asked me to carry. And we prayed to this, all our devotees, Sunny Prabhu, and we went to car and we prayed to these 6 Goswamis. And after 6:30 to 8:30, we distributed 3 sets. So when we associate with senior Vaishnavas like Prabhupada disciples or Mukunda, Datta Prabhu or Ragupati Prabhu, we'll get Vaishnava qualities. So please come and and also we invited 2 special guests tomorrow for Prabhu's class. They got Bhagavatam last weekend, so they are beginners. And they said this is the right time to come because tomorrow is Prabhuji is giving a class, and after the class I think they want to associate with the devotees. So I will introduce to them tomorrow once they are here. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, just the last announcement. Yeah, we like to acknowledge that today's cooking has been done by our dear Hiral Mataji and assisted by Shraddha Mataji and Bharni Mataji. So let's chant a Hari Bol for them. Prasadam will be served right here outside, so all of you can make a line and can take prasadam here in the main temple room. Hare Krishna. Preferably, we request devotee that they can take the prasadam in the one side of the room, that side, where I am showing my hand. Yeah. Thank you.